Let's play a game of what would you do? You have heard about the real estate market right now. I want to share a story. There's $10,000 on the line. There's an ethics issue. There's an honesty issue. There's a what would you do in this circumstance if you were the buyer or the seller? Follow this. This hit hard today. I've got a client that's buying a house that we are closing tomorrow. The loan is 100% done. It's approved. Everything is completely signed off on. Right now, because there's not a lot of inventory, a lot of things are being done really creative and really aggressive to get contracts accepted. And in this case, not necessarily just for this one, I've seen some folks put up some massive earnest money amounts. And when you go through what's called the due diligence or financing contingency period, which sometimes is 10 days, but you have a 30-day closing, if anything happens after that, you can be on the hook. Well, what would you do on this if you were the seller and your buyer did this to you? What would you do if you were the listing agent or the selling agent? And what would you do if you were the buyer in this case? So this couple, their loan is 100% done. They put $10,000 down in earnest money on this house. And he found out today that he was going to be losing his job in a couple of weeks after closing. So he has his job now, and we've already approved, or he has his job. But the guy called me and he said, Alan, I found out, and I have the question always, it's an ethics issue and it's a fraud issue. If anything materially is going to change about the loan or financing, you got to let me know. So the guy called me and told me that. And here's the thing, when he told me, he knew we can't do the loan for you. And he also knew because of that, he was going to be losing $10,000. Now the seller has the right to keep it. They may or may not. If that happened to your person buying your home and they lost their job, would you keep all their earnest money? I'm seeing it left and right. What would you do there? And if you're a realtor and your client lost their job and said, hey, you found out about it, but if you didn't call Alan, and if I did not know about this, we'd be closing tomorrow. He'd be buying his house. He'll probably get another job inside of 3 or 4 weeks based on this job, but he'd be buying his house and he wouldn't be losing his earnest money. And what would you do as a realtor if he told you that? So I don't call Alan, don't tell him, because if he hadn't called it, we'd have been fine. But this guy picked up the phone and called me, and I had to stop and say, listen, I want to tell you something. You said volumes about who you are as a person because you knew it and you called me and you told me, and you also know the ramifications. So you know what? Sometimes doing the right thing always sometimes may cost you, but as I always believe, God's got a better plan out there. And I've had folks that have literally lost their job the day before they closed on a house and they didn't buy it. And they said, what do you do? I said, you thank God for it because something better is going to come. And I have one close couple that he lost his job the day after they bought their house, and they moved up to a much nicer house. He lost his job the day after he closed. They were moving in, and I called him and he said, I lost it. And what did he say? He said, you thank God. But you know what? The funny thing is that couple bought that house in 2008 in a depressed market, and I think they paid about $324 for it. And it's now worth probably $700,000. And he made out like an absolute bandit. But in the exact moment, we didn't know that. So there was a bigger and better plan. So you don't know. So hard day today. But truly, what would you do as the seller? Would you keep their money or give it back? If you were the buyer and found out about it, would you do that? Now, I'm not expecting you to say you wouldn't for something like that. But think about it inside. And as realtors, would you do that? And as you're out buying, negotiating on contracts on houses right now, because it's a crazy market, you got to think some of these things through. People are trying to get really aggressive on some of these offers to try to get them accepted. Or there's a risk mitigation thing you've got to think about. Are you willing to put $10,000 on the line to get your offer accepted? You may be fine. But what if you lose your job? What if somebody dies? What if something happens? Are you willing to put that out there? So anything, I appreciate you guys. I just had to share that story. Do the right thing always. I'm Alan Christian, your friend, your neighbor. Have an awesome day. Talk to you soon.